the laughter died first. One moment, the sunny backyard was full of music. The next, there was only a loud splash and a collective gasp. Maribel hit the cold, chlorinated water, her floral sundress ballooning around her. A platter of deviled eggs, the one she'd spent all morning on, scattered across the bright blue surface. She surfaced, sputtering. Through the blur, she saw them. Her son, Jareth, stood at the pool's edge, his hand still outstretched from the push. His new wife, Calla, stood beside him, a perfect, painted smirk on her face. She raised her wineglass in a mock toast. "Looks like you needed to cool off, Maribel," Calla drawled. Jareth forced a high, nervous laugh. "Just a joke, Mom." His eyes, however, weren't looking at her. They were fixed on Calla, desperate for approval. He had pushed his own mother into a pool full of his wife's sophisticated friends just to make Calla smile. She was the outsider here. This was their new, grand house. Her small bungalow felt a world away. She had brought the eggs because they were Jareth's favorite, but Calla had wrinkled her nose. "Nobody eats that anymore, Maribel," she'd whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Now, those same friends watched her, a wet, dripping, middle-aged punchline. She dog-paddled to the side. Jareth offered a hand, his smile still painted on. "Come on, Mom, be a good sport." Maribel looked at his hand, the same one she used to hold when crossing the street. She ignored it. Using her own strength, Maribel hoisted herself out. Water streamed from her dress, creating a dark puddle. The music clicked back on, Calla's signal that the show was over. Maribel stood there, dripping and shivering. She looked at Calla, who was already laughing with a friend. Then, she looked at Jareth. "Mom, you're dripping everywhere," he said, annoyed. "Go get a towel." "You're embarrassing me." A strange calm settled over Maribel. It was a terrible, cold clarity. She walked past her son and picked up her wet purse. "Mom? Where are you going?" Jareth called. Maribel turned, her hand on the back gate. "I'm going to sell the house, Jareth. The one you grew up in." Jareth's face went pale. "What? You can't. You know, we need that money." Maribel gave him a small, cold smile. "That's why I'm doing it. You pushed me, Jareth. Now you get to see what happens when I fall." She walked out, leaving him stunned. 6 months earlier, Maribel's house was a place of comfort. It was a small, paid-off bungalow with a garden full of tomatoes. It was her entire life savings, all in one place. Then Jareth brought Calla home. Calla was like a bright, sharp piece of glass. She came from money, and she made Jareth seem anxious, desperate to impress. One Tuesday, Jareth came over alone. He had a big idea, a tech company. He just needed help. "It's a business loan, Mom," he'd said, spreading papers on her kitchen table. "Calla's father is matching every dollar. But the bank needs security. Just a signature." Maribel had hesitated. "Jareth, this house is all I have." "I know. It's just a formality," he said, placing his hand over hers. "This thing is a sure bet. We'll be rich, Mom. I'll buy you a new house. Please. Trust me." She looked at her son. The son she had raised to be a good man. So, she trusted him. She signed the paper, an ironclad pledge of assets. She didn't know what ironclad meant. She just knew Jareth's smile. Now, back in the present, Maribel sat shivering in her car, the pool water still damp. The memory made her sick. It wasn't a joke. It was a strategy. They hadn't just humiliated her, they had used her. She drove home and sat at that same kitchen table. She pulled the loan agreement from her desk. Her signature was right there. She had given her son the power to destroy her. She picked up her phone to call a realtor. But a new text message popped up. It was from Jareth. His words were cold, typed, and not a joke. Calla is furious. If you try to sell that house, you will regret it. This is your only warning. You already signed the papers. You can't back out now. Maribel's hand trembled. He wasn't asking. He was threatening. She was trapped. The next morning, Jareth and Calla pulled up to Maribel's bungalow. A bright red for sale sign was hammered into her front lawn. She's bluffing, Jareth said, slamming his car door. He walked up the porch steps and used his old key, not bothering to knock. Mom? Maribel was in the kitchen, packing a box. You don't live here anymore, Jareth. You knock. Mom, stop this, he said, grabbing the box. Take the sign down. You're making Calla upset. You're going to ruin everything. Ruin what? Maribel asked, her voice dangerously calm. Ruin your big chance? What about my future, Jareth? This house is my retirement. Did you think about that when you pushed me into the pool? It was a joke, he shouted. You're ruining my life over a stupid joke. This new, cold version of his mother stunned him. He tried a different tactic. His face softened. Mom, please. This is for us. For our family. Calla's pregnant. Maribel's heart skipped. A grandchild. She looked at him, searching his face. But her eyes drifted past him, to the silver car. Calla was still in it, checking her makeup in the visor mirror. She's lying, Maribel said, her voice flat. Jareth was stunned. What? No! Mom, how can you say that? Because you are, Jareth. You're a bad liar. Maribel picked up her phone. Now get out of my house. The realtor is coming. Calla, seeing she had lost, finally got out of the car. Fine, Calla sneered. Sell it. We dare you. But you should know, Maribel, you won't see a single penny. What are you talking about? Maribel said. Calla smiled. That paper you signed? That ironclad pledge of assets? It means the second this house is sold, the bank gets the money. All of it. It goes directly to our business account. You'll be homeless, and you'll have paid for our new life. Maribel's blood ran cold. You didn't just co-sign a loan, you old fool, Calla whispered. You gave us the house. Maribel felt like she was back in the pool, unable to breathe. Homeless. The word echoed. She had walked right into their plan. She spent 2 days in a fog, staring at the loan agreement. Jareth and Calla had played her perfectly. On the third day, she found a faded business card, Lowell Hayes, Legal Services. He was a small-town lawyer who had helped her with her will years ago. Lowell's office was above a hardware store. He listened to Maribel's entire story. He read the loan agreement, his brow furrowing. Well, Maribel, he said, this is, as she said, ironclad. It's a very predatory agreement. You've pledged the full equity of your home. So Calla was right? Maribel whispered, her heart sinking. If I sell, they get all the money? And if I don't sell, they can just take it? If the business loan defaults, yes, Lowell said grimly. The bank will seize this house. Jareth trapped you. Maribel put her face in her hands. The tears she had held back finally came. What do I do? I have nowhere to go. Lowell was silent for a moment. You don't fight the agreement, Maribel, he said softly. You fight the house. What do you mean? This document assumes you had the right to pledge the house in the first place. Did you? Of course, she said. It's mine. My mother gave it to me, years before I even married Jareth's father. Lowell's eyes lit up. Before? Maribel, go home. I want you to find the original deed. Find anything from when your mother gave you the house. Look for paperwork. Maribel didn't understand. But for the first time in days, she felt a tiny spark of defiance. She went home and tore the attic apart. In the bottom of an old metal hatbox, she found it, a thick bundle of papers bound with a rotting rubber band. It was the original title. But tucked inside it was another document. A faded, blue folder. She opened it. Maribel gasped. She hadn't seen this in 30 years. It was called the Marigold Trust. Maribel read the trust document over and over. The language was old, but the main idea was clear. Her mother, who had never trusted banks, had been smart. She hadn't just given Maribel the house. She had put it into a special, protected box. The trust owned the house. Maribel was the trustee, meaning she was the boss of the house. She could live in it and paint it. But the trust had one very strict rule. The house could never be sold or used as a promise for a loan. It was meant to pass to Jareth, but only after Maribel was gone. The next morning, she was at Lowell's office before he'd even finished his coffee. He read the trust, his eyes wide. Then, a slow, wide smile spread across his face. Maribel, he said, your mother was a genius. What does it mean, Lowell? It means, he said, tapping the ironclad pledge, that this loan agreement is worthless. It's toilet paper. Maribel felt her knees go weak. But I signed it. You signed, promising something you didn't own, Lowell explained. You can't promise to give someone the Brooklyn Bridge, because you don't own it. You couldn't promise this house, because the trust owns it. The trust is stronger than the loan. A wave of relief washed over Maribel. She wasn't homeless. Jareth and Calla's financing is built on a lie, Lowell continued. They're about to get a phone call from the bank's fraud department. Calla's father is about to find out his entire investment is unsecured. He's not going to be happy. Lowell picked up his phone. This is what we do next, he said. First, I'm filing an injunction. Then, I'm calling Calla's father. Personally. Miles away, Jareth and Calla were at a sunny outdoor cafe, clinking glasses of mimosas. Calla's phone buzzed. She looked at it, her smile fading. It was her father. Daddy? Is everything okay? Maribel, sitting in Lowell's dusty office, could almost hear the explosion. Calla's face went white. The mimosa glass slipped from her hand and shattered. Calla's scream turned heads. The deal is dead, she shrieked. What do you mean, fraud? Jareth just stared. Calla's father was yelling so loudly, Jareth could hear the muffled rage. He's pulling the money, Calla whispered, her eyes wide with terror. He's pulling all of it. He said the bank is investigating us. The life Jareth dreamed of was dissolving. This is your mother's fault, Calla hissed, grabbing her purse. She did this. They sped to Maribel's bungalow. Jareth pounded on the door. Mom! Open this door. You have to fix this. You have to call the bank. Maribel opened the door calmly. It wasn't a mistake, Jareth. You planned this. Calla shoved past him. You tricked us. Ruin you? Maribel repeated. You came into my home. You lied to me. You got me to sign a paper that would have left me with nothing. You humiliated me for sport. It was a joke. Jareth yelled. Was this a joke, too? Maribel said. Maribel stepped aside. Lowell Hayes was standing in her living room. We found your original loan application, Mr. Jareth, Lowell said calmly. The one you sent to a different bank before you went to your mother. It was denied. The underwriter flagged it as high risk and likely to fail within 6 months. The blood drained from Jareth's face. He was caught. Calla looked at him, her beautiful face twisting into a mask of pure fury. You knew? You knew this entire thing was a bad bet? You lied. You lied to me. Calla, baby, I can explain, Jareth stammered. You used your mother's house for a business you knew would fail. Calla screamed. You didn't just push your mother into the pool, son, Maribel said. You were holding her head under the water. And you were smiling while you did it. Calla let out a dry, hacking sob. He didn't just lie to you. He lied to my father. We're ruined. She turned and ran from the house. Jareth stood frozen on the porch, watching Calla's car speed away. He looked at Lowell, then at his mother. He was completely alone. Mom, he whispered. I think you should go, Jareth, Maribel said, her voice tired. She closed the door, the click of the lock sounding as loud as a gunshot. Jareth sank onto the porch steps. He had lost everything. His wife. The money. His business. And his mother. The humiliation he'd made Maribel feel was nothing compared to the shame that was crushing him now. Inside, Maribel leaned against the door. She had won. The house was safe. But it was a terrible victory. She had unmasked her own son. She watched him through the peephole, a grown man, weeping. The anger she had felt was gone. Now, there was just an empty ache. She opened the door again. Jareth looked up, his face puffy. She's not answering her phone, he mumbled. Her father won't take my calls. I'm ruined. Yes, you are, Maribel said. You built this. I just wanted to be successful, he cried. I just wanted her to be proud of me. Her father, he makes me feel so small. I just wanted to be enough. So you decided to make me small instead? Maribel asked. Jareth had no answer. As Maribel watched him, a new, colder fear crept in. Calla hadn't just been angry. She had been terrified. Jareth's lie about the business wasn't the only secret. Jareth, Maribel said, her voice sharp. Why was Calla so scared? What aren't you telling me? Jareth wiped his nose, his body shaking. It wasn't just her father's money. Calla, she has a problem. A gambling problem. The business wasn't just to make us rich. It was to pay off her debts. Debts to who? The bank? Jareth shook his head, looking up with terrified eyes. No. Not the bank. These are bad people, Mom. They were giving her until the 1st of the month. That's next week. They think we have the money from the house. Maribel's heart stopped. Mom, Jareth whispered, I think Calla's in real danger. And now? I think they're going to come for us. The story spilled out of Jareth. Calla's family money was long gone. She had been hiding massive gambling debts. Her father had agreed to the business venture as a last attempt to clean the money and pay off the loan sharks who were threatening his family's name. The pool party was a performance to show the lenders they were successful. She wasn't trying to impress her friends, Mom, Jareth admitted. She was trying to stay alive. And I just went along with it. Maribel felt sick. Jareth was a fool, and he had dragged his mother into the middle of it. She used you, Jareth. And you used me. I know, he said. But they don't know the deal is dead. They just know where the collateral is. They know where you live. Maribel's bungalow was no longer a home, it was a target. She grabbed her phone and dialed Lowell. Lowell, she said, her voice shaking. We have a new problem. A much bigger one. She explained everything. Lowell was silent. Maribel, listen to me, he said, his voice urgent. Lock your doors. Do not leave the house. I am making a call. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Maribel hung up and locked the deadbolt. She turned to Jareth, who was pacing, looking out the windows. You brought this here, Jareth. This danger. I'll fix it, Mom. I'll tell them the truth. You'll do nothing, Maribel snapped. You'll sit down and you'll be quiet. Your fixing is what got us here. Jareth flinched, but he obeyed. The silence in the house was heavy. Every car that passed made Jareth jump. Then, a car did slow down. A long, black SUV with tinted windows. It didn't drive past. It parked directly across the street. The engine cut off. Two men in dark suits got out. They just stood on the sidewalk, looking directly at Maribel's house. Jareth's breath hitched. Mom. Oh, no. That's them. That's them. One of the men smiled, a slow, cold expression. He pointed at the for sale sign on her lawn. Then he pointed at the house. He slowly, deliberately, started to cross the street. The man walked up the path, his footsteps heavy. His partner stayed by the SUV. The man didn't knock. He just stood on the porch, staring at the peephole. Jareth was hiding in the kitchen, his back against the refrigerator, holding a steak knife. Maribel stood in her entryway, rigid with fear. She could hear the man breathing. Then, her phone buzzed. A text from Lowell. Heads up. They're here. So are we. Wait for my signal. Do not open the door. Maribel let out a breath. She looked through the peephole. The man was still there. But down the street, a blue and white police car had pulled up silently, its lights off. And behind the black SUV, Lowell's own rusty pickup truck had blocked it in. The man on the porch must have heard something. He turned. He saw the police car. His smile vanished. He turned and walked quickly back toward his car. He's leaving, Jareth whispered. Shoo, Maribel said. Before the man could open his car door, 2 police officers were on him. At the same time, Lowell and a police detective got out of the truck. Predatory lending, Lowell's voice boomed across the quiet street. And extortion. The man who had been smiling was now pressed against the side of his own car. Maribel's legs gave out, and she sank onto the entryway bench. It was over. Lowell had used Calla's father's testimony to get an arrest warrant. He had protected her. Jareth slowly walked out of the kitchen and dropped the knife. He looked at his mother. The relief was short-lived. Now, there was only the quiet, awful space of what came next. Mom, he said, his voice hollow. I'm so sorry. I'll leave. Maribel looked at her son. He was a fool. He was a liar. He was weak. But he was her son. He had nowhere to go. No, Maribel said, her voice firm. You're not leaving. You're staying right here. Jareth looked up, confused. What? You're not going to run away from this, Jareth. You're going to clean it up. She pointed to the kitchen. Starting with those boxes. I've decided not to sell. But I am repainting. And you are going to help. Jareth stayed in his childhood bedroom. There were no more suits, no more fancy cars. His phone was a stream of angry texts from Calla's family, which he finally just turned off. He was powerless. And Maribel gave him no comfort. She just gave him work. The porch needs scraping, she said, handing him a tool. The garden is overgrown. The gutters are full. For a week, Jareth worked. He scraped old paint. He pulled weeds. He scrubbed floors. His hands, once soft, became blistered. He worked in silence. Maribel worked alongside him, just as silent. They were two strangers, rebuilding the house he had almost lost. One evening, they sat on the newly scraped porch. Lowell sent his bill, Jareth said quietly. I saw it on the table. I can't pay it. I know, Maribel said. I'll get a job. At the diner. I'll pay it back. I'll pay you back. For everything. Maribel was quiet for a long time. You won't pay me back, Jareth. You can't. What you took, you can't pay that back with money. He looked down, his face full of shame. I know. But you can pay Lowell, she continued. And you can pay the mortgage. Jareth looked up. The mortgage? This house is paid off. It was, Maribel said. I took out a small loan against the house. The trust allows for that, for home improvement. I used it to pay Lowell. She handed him the payment book. I saw they're hiring a trainee manager at the diner. It's not glamorous. But it's a start. You'll live here. And you will pay this bill. Every month. Until it's done. 6 months later, Maribel was in her garden, pulling tomatoes. The for sale sign was long gone. A 10-year-old budget car pulled up. Jareth got out, wearing his diner manager's polo shirt. He looked tired, but his eyes were clear. He walked into the backyard, holding an envelope. Hey, Mom. Hey, Jareth, she said. He sat at the patio table. Here, he said. It's the last one. The loan. It's paid. I'm done. Maribel finally looked up. She nodded. Okay. What's next? I put in my 2 weeks. I'm moving into a small apartment downtown. It's not much. But it's mine. Good, she said. They sat in the quiet. Mom, Jareth said, his voice thick. Thank you. For not letting me drown. Maribel looked at her son. He was finally the man she had tried to raise. Someone had to teach you how to swim, Jareth, she said. Now, come inside. Help me make dinner. You still like deviled eggs, don't you? Thank you for watching. What did you think of Maribel's decision? Was she too forgiving, or did Jareth deserve a second chance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you loved this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. We have new stories coming out every week.